most important barrier is that the technology is already there, but it's more about the social things. So I'm more interested in why something succeeds, not how it works, but why did it succeed? Was there an ambassador? What did make it a success? So the knowledge transfer should not only be about the content, what is realized, but how it's realized. I think that's more important.
One of the most important barrier is the way we organize ourselves. So because it's a system change, so you have to think it throughout the system. So it's not solely about technology. In fact, technology we can solve, but it's about the change of the system to step out of our linear thinking and really go into a systems change. And therefore we need leadership. Leadership from the crowd, political leadership. In fact, there is a lack of real leadership, because to change the system, you really have to have this courage to do so.
We have very different situations, different contexts, and the challenge is to discover what we have in common and where we can actually learn from each other, mainly on the process, on how we approach problems or challenges.
My experience is that the background or the framework in the different countries is quite a barrier, like the socio-economic or cultural differences between the countries, which means that you cannot transfer one-to-one from one country to another, but you really have to understand what's going on behind to then have a good transfer of a solution.
If you start thinking about barriers, of course, I would also think that you should also start always from opportunities. But speaking about differences, about barriers, it's mostly, the word says it already, it's about difference of transfer from one culture to another. So it has to do with different, let's say, progress, state of progress of existing, in this case, resource management. And often it's this knowledge transfer differences related to another context at home, which make it difficult to let's say, really transfer the solutions one-to-one in the same way to the other person.
The knowledge about the circular economy as such, because in Poland, actually, there are just scientists who know this idea, and it's very hard to transfer this knowledge about circular economy to whole people who is on the pool meeting. But the third one is about the real needs, because in Poland we're still thinking more about ecology, not by circular economy.
In our case, it is the language, the spoken language, because Hungarian usually can't speak foreign language like English or the most often spoken foreign language is German, for instance. So first of all, if you have an eco-innovative solution, you have to translate it to Hungarian, and then the stakeholders or the people who are interested in can understand what it's about.
The most important barriers relate to three aspects. One is behavioral and cultural, the other one is institutional, and the third one is financial. When talking about behavioral aspects, then I refer to different attitudes towards reusing food or reusing materials secondhand. So there are countries and cities where this is a problem, and other countries where they are more open to it. The second aspect is the institutional. It's very difficult to transfer solutions from one place to another if in the places different institutions, different levels of governments are in charge of different aspects of these solutions. Then you cannot just simply transfer it. And the third one is simply we have richer and less rich areas in Europe, so the availability of funds, of money, public and private, is just different, and this needs to be considered when transferring solutions.
When you like to transfer a solution about circular economy from a place A to a place B, it can be difficult when there is a lack of knowledge in the recipient context about the topic, but also when a strong network of actors which are aimed to work towards the goal of circularity altogether is missing.
One of the biggest barriers for knowledge transfer in the circular economy is the context, the local context where you want to implement a certain circular solution. So, for instance, this is about the cultural context, financial context, also geographic, climatic. So all these topics and the political context as well, and this part of context all influences how eco-innovative solutions or circular solutions can be implemented in a certain place. And that means that they're not always directly transferable from one situation to another.
Yes, I was in the US a few years ago, and what they did in circular economy, they really look at the economy concept. So they're much more entrepreneurial. So they don't, when they have a technology, they don't rely on subsidies, but they rely on investors, private investors. So they really try to make the business plan, and that made me realize that in Holland we still use a lot of subsidies to get circular economy projects going. And just the entrepreneurial perspective helped me in my work to build on a closed water system on circular economy basis.
We had a solution from Hamburg where they actually look at a place where they have services to help people to recycle or to know how to treat waste. Although the solution cannot be transferred to our context entirely, there are some aspects that might work here as well. But there we have lots of discussion on, because we have a way of doing things, and that means that we should transform them completely, and that's always more difficult to do.
So for us, a very interesting solution is the food waste avoidance app from Ghent. This is something that we don't have like this in Hamburg, and so this might be a solution that could be transferred. Although in Hamburg or in Germany, we have some different apps from commercial offers, and also we have some other apps on waste avoidance, but for the field of food waste, it's a missing link, but we would have to check how this link could be filled and by whom, so who would be in charge for this app.
In our region, it's very important that we start with the first, if you have to reduce, reuse, recycle trilogy, the reduce side, that's something we still need to, let's say, find solutions. And there we found a couple of, let's say, very interesting points which we could learn from the Ghent and Hamburg case. And also I think it's very important that the separation to quality of waste. I mean, in waste separation, still we have a lot to learn about how to improve the different flows in the separation by citizens, because there's a lot of challenges to still overcome.
It's a solution from Hamburg and from students from Hamburg. It was concentrated to solve the problem about remote area, special for bio-waste. And the idea was to create a smaller container and put it near the neighborhoods people where the people are living.
In Amsterdam, there was a good solution called bioseasonal parking. That means that there was a biological created cover that is used at Schiphol Airport for seasonal parking. The adaptation is that we don't have an airport, but we can use this cover because it is very important for us, for instance, in festivals or circuses. Or also another solution for us can be that we can use these covers for building a structural site, building structural sites. For depositing building materials.
I'll take the example of the eco-innovative solution that's called Peel Pioneer, where we use the peels of citrus fruits, orange and similar, to produce two other materials. One is essential oils and the other one is textiles. Why did we transfer that to the Netherlands? Because in the Netherlands we have the problem that we have a surplus of manure and compost, so composting is not an option, so we need to use ways of creating more value out of our food waste. The adaptations were in this way that they need to that the solution needs to really fit the economic activities in the Netherlands. This is on the one hand a very large food production sector, but also a very big sector of catering and juice production. So that is one, and the other one is very much spatially related, because the food sector is spatially very concentrated in the Amsterdam metropolitan region, so it needs to be closely related. So new functions need to be closely related to the existing functions.
We experimented the transfer from Amsterdam case to Naples, and the main adaptation was to merge two solutions that were developed separately in Amsterdam, to merge in one main solution for Naples that is applied in a differentiated way according to the context. And for example, these two solutions were addressing both the buffer zone of the infrastructures in Amsterdam, of large infrastructure networks, but one was aimed to improve the biodiversity, and the other one was aimed to reuse this buffer zone that sometimes are underused for leisure activities. And in the case of Naples, before of strict regulations that don't allow to use to people to be in these buffer zones, we decided to merge and to adapt this in a differentiated way where it's possible.
In Amsterdam, we imported, transferred a solution that we got from the Naples case. And this was a solution that was about hemp, and the hemp was used in Naples to clean the soil. And importing this one to Amsterdam, what we did was to, thinking that it can be used in the same way in Amsterdam, but moreover, the rest material that you get from this solution could be very well used in construction. So from the hemp you could make material for building as well.
The most important thing for knowledge transfer, and the tip I get, is that show how it's working. What are key factors that made it happen? Was there some ambassador, a mayor who supported it? Was there an entrepreneur who was really willing to succeed? I think the most knowledge transfer is about the content, on what is happening, but I still think it's better to show what is the economy behind it, what's the incentive behind it. I think that's the most important thing.
Apply it, share it, and learn from it. So learning by doing is, for me, the most effective strategy. We have to develop the same language. As long as one person is speaking about waste management, and others say, "Oh, I want to be circular," and they don't come together, then you have a big barrier, and then there is no way to really practical change because you don't hear each other, right? So you also have to solve this as well.
How do you learn from the way others approach a problem? How do they look at the problem and how do they come to the solution? For me, it's sometimes more about the process as such rather than about the practical solution, because there you have so many different contexts.
The experience here, I think that the field trips were very helpful, so to really see, feel, touch solutions, to understand them well, and also to have the possibility to look a bit behind, because if you only have it in a written way or in pictures, it might be too simple and not deep enough. So I think like a field trip is a good idea. And to go a step further, a good idea could be to have like a peer-to-peer exchange. So if you have a matchmaker that you exchange with him or her to better understand the condition and then to take over the idea to your country.
It's mostly about openness. It's mostly about being open to really learn, even if you think that you are in an advanced state or if you're far behind. It doesn't matter. I think it's about openness to let's say, to learn. It can be about the organizational aspects you like to learn. It can be on very technical aspects, but mostly it's about trying to find exactly the differences, the barriers, to find the solutions, so the opportunities.
The best is if from the side of recipient countries, there is one who has the wider knowledge. It means that if you have a civil servant or stakeholders working for NGOs, for green NGOs, this is the best because he or she knows about technologies, somehow knows about the governmental or legal situation and all the context of the recipient localization. So I think that the first of all and the most important is to take someone who are also very active in the field.
What is important that if cities or regions want to learn from other regions is that we aim at leapfrogging. So don't try to learn from other places that have exactly the same challenges, and don't try to just follow steps. So not from a limited waste treatment to separation and then a more advanced recycling and so on, because we know that even our advanced, the cities that most advanced are not even close to a circular economy. So it needs leapfrogging on every level.
We found very useful to unpack the solution that's coming from abroad and to simplify it. So we provided to our stakeholders simple schemes to discuss about the original solutions in order to understand which are the key principles that can be applied and be site-specifically applied in our recipient case.
Keep it simple. So what we've seen in the REPAiR project is that the more simple solutions are easier to transfer than the more complex ones. And if they are complex solutions and you want to transfer them, also think about how can you simplify them, how can you actually make the solution, maybe take it apart in order to make the parts of the solution transferable. I think that's the best advice I can give.